Come over. I missed you when I caught the others. Hello.
And I noticed that Audrey now is hitting when the people come to get the dog.
Your face was the same.
Yeah, he fell in love with that.
I mean, the bodies may change, but the faces are
No, when she pulls in, you know it's hard.
great. I made it work on the second try. It didn't make it on the first.
So you can see all this stuff.
Got him off really cool. Oh, so you're still early.
Well, if I don't look, of course, if I'm busy, but if I'm just see,
Yeah, it's nice.
I do, and then I stop. I do from 85 here to 80.
Okay, I think we're gonna get started. Andy, you gonna
Already
start
got
the
it.
recording?
Already
Okay,
got it.
perfect. Well, welcome everyone. What a beautiful day to celebrate the life of my father, Stan Buchin. Before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about a few things that you might have seen on the table coming in. If you didn't get a chance, please sign the guest book. But you might have also seen a crossword puzzle and wonder what that was about. Well, my mom and dad did the New York Times crossword puzzle every day. Crossword puzzles were a very important activity for them, and so my nephew, right here, created a crossword puzzle that has some of Stan's events in his life, things like that. So we thank Zach for creating the crossword puzzle and encourage you all to pick one up and try to do it. Yep. It's on the poster in the corner. You can take a picture of it with your phone if you want. So for those of you that don't know me, and I have met a lot of you, because I've been at the Village over the years, my name is Linda, and I'm the oldest of the three children.
And the prettiest.
You're biased.
And, you know, I really enjoyed hearing what lots of people have stopped me in the hallway over the last couple of weeks and shared wonderful stories about Stan. And I thought I would like to share a few things about why he was such an important part of my life. And much of it was happening before most of you knew him. So it'll just give you another perspective. We do have one of his oldest friends who's here who will be talking later, so he might correct me on a few things, who knows. But as I think back on the influence that my dad had on my life, there were really 4 areas that I thought I would share. The first and foremost was that my mom and dad were both adamant that I should have the same educational opportunities as my brothers, unlike the experience of his mother and my mother. And as a result, I was very privileged and went to the Windsor School. Many of you may know it's an all-girls school here in Boston. Was there for middle school and high school. And it was a wonderful place. I was surrounded by brilliant women teachers. Nobody thought I was weird because I liked math and science. It didn't even occur to me that I should be, that some people lived in a world where women shouldn't be doing that. And so, my parents really fostered my love of science, where I got a BS in biology, and I ended up teaching high school science for 5 years. So that was the first thing I wanted to thank them for. The second is, as most of you know, Stan, one of the things he would say is, don't complain about things. Just step up to the plate and take action and fix it, or accept that things are that way and move on. And I have several funny stories, but the one I really want to share was an example. And think about how important it is, as I tell this story, for a female to have her father treat her this way. So, as he was wont to do, he was picking up the carpool from confirmation class at St. Andrews in Wellesley. I was fit to be tied when I got in the car. We're planning for the actual confirmation. We're almost done with class. He said, what are you upset about? And I said, well, I just found out that the girls have to wear doilies on their heads and the boys don't have to wear anything. Like, what's up with that? Do they think I have dirty hair? Like, I can assure you my hair is cleaner than most of the 9th grade boys in my class. So rather than just sort of rolling his eyes and saying, well, just, that's the way it is, be a good girl, just comply, he said, well, I don't know, but if it means a lot to you, why don't you ask somebody? So next week I went in and I asked the Reverend, why do I have to wear something and the boys don't? Certainly there are religions where everybody wears something and that's fine, but why were the girls being treated differently? Well, guess what? He didn't have an answer. And when he asked the bishop, he didn't have an answer either. So guess what? The girls did not wear head coverings at our confirmation that year. So what a gift to be heard and encouraged to ask why. And that's something that he continued to do through all of our lives. The third thing was to dream big. And as you know, he was an optimist. What's the worst thing that could happen? If you fail, at least you tried. But the worst thing is to regret not trying. So we had a couple of examples of where this really came to play. So I fell in love with the sport of rowing when I was in high school, as did my brothers were also involved with rowing. But as my team was working really hard, we got towards our senior year in high school, and we had to use some heavy old wooden rowing boat that belonged to the boys' school, Belmont Hill, that we partnered with. And we were racing against girls' teams that had these snazzy new fiberglass boats. And there was we could barely carry the boat to the dock, let alone get this thing moving through the water. So of course, I'm complaining one night at dinner, and my father said, well, stop complaining, what are you gonna do about it? So I led my team to raise the funds to purchase the first boat for our school. And that experience actually opened the door for me in unexpected ways. I wrote a college essay, an application essay about the experience, and I was stopped in the middle of a college interview by the interviewer who said, hang on, got on the phone, and called the head of athletics and called the head of the alumni office and said, you need to come here and listen to what this girl did with their rowing program. So I learned you didn't have to be an adult to really make something happen, and that, it never hurts to ask. But that actually wasn't the big dream for me. But it really got my aspiration and my love of rowing set on a path forward. My father always encouraged all of us to set big goals. So believe it or not, my goal, again, remember, I went to Windsor where girls can do anything. I arrived on the campus of my college and discovered that the boys' rowing team had just come back from the Royal Henley Regatta in England. And they would go again in 4 years if they had a team that was good enough. And yes, they could take a female coxswain. So guess what my big goal was? All right, that's it. And yes, my senior year I did get to go to Henley, and women weren't rowing there yet, so I was one of 2 females that were competing there. It was quite the experience. But not only did I achieve that goal, but I actually was on the U.S. women's national team a few years later. I have to thank my father in part for this accomplishment. My entire family stood beside me and supported me through a very long, challenging journey to get there. And they believed in me and came to almost every high school, collegiate, and post-collegiate competition that we had. In fact, as my brothers will attest, and there's actually one rower from one of my brother's boat here too, my dad had a very distinctive voice when he was walking the paths on the side of the river, and it didn't matter where we were, he would always cheer for us and warm up, and there's always somebody on my boat saying, "Your dad is here, I hear him cheering on the bank." He was our ultimate cheerleader. So hopefully you can see the importance of, especially in a girl's life, having the support and that you can do anything and I'll be there for you was really important. And the final thing that really came to play here was I made the difficult decision to leave academia and actually go to business school. Now, I had no business going to business school. I was a science major and I was a teacher, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. I just felt like there was something else out there for me. And so my father and mother were both there along the way, whether I needed a shoulder to cry on or whether I needed stop crying, it's okay. Pull yourself up and move forward. Little did I know that my father had spies. I went to the Tuck School at Dartmouth, and he was well aware of how I was doing, what was going on. I didn't know this till years later, but it was a great experience, and I never would have had the courage, I think, to take that step if I didn't have parents like my dad and mom. And of course, probably the best thing that happened to me at Tuck was that I met my husband, who's on Monday we will have been married for 35 years. So it was a great thing to do all around. When I graduated from business school, my dad took me aside to have a very serious conversation. He told me that he would always be there for me, and if I ever felt I encountered sexual discrimination or sexual harassment, he was ready to support me emotionally and legally, that he would pay for legal services. What a special gift to know that somebody like him was there, and he was wise enough to know the world I was going into, it was a possibility. And in fact, it was just 2 years later that I did encounter some problems. But you know what? I had the courage and the confidence to handle it on my own, in part because I knew he had my back, but I was able to do it myself. So my father was a very important person in my life, and I miss him every day. But his legacy lives on in all of you, from all the great things and stories you've told me. And thank you for honoring him today. Now, before I hand it over to my brother, there was somebody that really wanted to come and speak today that those of you at the village know quite well and why he was important. And unfortunately, he had a commitment and wasn't able to come. But for those of you that live here, you know that the last year, one of the things that really got my father excited was this artificial intelligence course, the AI course. And Adam Davenport helped him launch this course a year ago. Adam has written a very nice tribute to my dad on his LinkedIn page. But I just wanted to read a little excerpt because he couldn't be here. So he said, "It's with heavy heart that I share the news of Stan's passing. His guidance and mentorship were invaluable, and our friendship is something I'll always cherish. I'll never forget his words of encouragement and wisdom, as well as his comical stories about navigating the business landscape throughout his numerous careers, which we often discussed. Being part of LaSalle Village and LaSalle University has been a great educational journey and contributed greatly to my personal growth. The small but tightly knit community has been more than just a place of learning. It's been a cornerstone of my life. I'm honored to have contributed to and grown within such an enriching environment, and Stan's guidance left an indelible mark on me, shaping both my professional aspirations and personal values. As I now pursue my MBA with a focus on entrepreneurial studies, I can carry forward the lessons Stan imparted, using them as a foundation for future endeavors. And at the end of his tribute, he has a link to the TV news clip. Those of you that were in the class know that the local TV affiliate came and filmed one of the classes and interviewed people. People were fascinated, and believe it or not, my dad got contacted by one of his relatives in Florida. They'd seen it down there. The thing went viral, I guess. So what a special place the village is, and it was such an important part of his life and my mother's life, and we thank you so much for being part of that. So now I'm going to pass it on to my brother Gordon.
Hello all. Thank you all first for coming here. It means a lot to us to know that he touched every one of you, and that he did care about every one of you. And as you're looking at these pictures, by the way, you will see we have a screenshot of the AI class. I'll also be referring to some pictures that are in here as well as I talk about my musings on this. But I did want to thank you all for coming here. My sister had mentioned that my father put together and worked on an AI class. And part of that is him always being curious, always having an adventurous spirit, always wanting to see new things, try new things. He even tasted some new things, which didn't always go so well. But that was something that always struck me. As my sister said, he was never don't just sit back. Take a part in it and take a part in life. Don't just sit down and watch things go by. Go out, have an adventure. And for anybody who's been with our family or connected to our family, we did a lot of travels and we had a lot of adventures. And that's what I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit here. I wanted to talk about that adventurous spirit, what it means to me to travel, what it means to me to have that adventurous spirit, and to always try and be curious and learn new things. It's something that I've tried to pass on to my child, and all of my nieces and nephews as well. And as I was thinking about doing this, a trip came to my mind. And one of the trips we did when I was very young, it touched me greatly, was we spent about 3 weeks in Greece and going around the Mediterranean. And for me, that was great because at the time, I loved ancient history. I loved the Peloponnesian Wars and all that history and Egyptology and all those things. And I was very excited about that. So we went to the Great Pyramids in Egypt. And we all had to take this long bus. We called it the SS Kidney Buster because there was no bathroom in it and we were driving for hours. And we got off, and my sister was in charge of taking pictures. And my brother and I were being young kids and brothers and went racing around trying to climb the pyramids and do various things. And we didn't really notice at the time that Stan wasn't with us for a lot of this. We didn't know, and we didn't really notice it. We were just kind of walking around doing our things, and then it was time to get back onto the bus, and there was Stan waiting, and he asked us, did we enjoy ourselves? Did you have fun? And we said, yes, that was great. And what did you see? Oh, we saw the pyramids, and we saw this. And we said, yeah, and did you enjoy it? And Dad said, yes, and had this little smirk on his face. I said, yeah. So we went back onto the boat. We went back, and now it's 2 weeks later, and we're getting our pictures from the trip. This was at a time when you actually had to go get your pictures developed. And the pictures came back, and as we're looking through the pictures, we suddenly see these pictures, we don't know where they came from. We didn't know what they were. And you'll actually see them, you'll see a couple of them here. And my father said, well, I had a little adventure. And we said, what does that mean? He said, well, when I got off the bus, I saw the Great Pyramids, and that was fascinating and everything. He said, but I looked over here, and there was this tiny little, like, lump in the sand with a little rope around it. And I got curious. And so I went over, and he said, and there was this little sort of trail that went down, and there was a guard standing there. So I kind of looked around and looked in, and the guard was standing there, and my dad said, what's in there? And he said, oh, they're just uncovered some new ruins and some new things. So Stan, being Stan, said, can I see? And the guy went, no. And he said, my kids really like this stuff. I would love to, can I just take a picture from here? And the guard apparently went, come, I show you. And took him into this little tomb. And there are going to be some pictures coming up. I can't time it just right, sorry, but there are some pictures where, see, here it is right here. So here he is. If you look on his head, that's not a bad toupee, and that's not a Mickey Mouse hat. That's actually from the Egyptian soldier. That was the hat that he was wearing. And those hieroglyphs were from inside the tomb. And we were all sitting there going, well, why didn't you tell us? And he said, well, you being my family, you wouldn't have believed me without the pictures. And so I took away from that the fact that it's not just curiosity that needs to drive you. You have to be willing to try and take that adventure. You have to be willing to say, hey, can I do this? Can I try this? Because as my sister said, the worst thing they're going to say is no, you can't. And so throughout my life, I have always tried to go, hey, maybe we'll give that a try. And now I'm getting so old that it's nice to have my wife who kind of looks at me and goes, no, you shouldn't be. No, bungee jumping for you is not going to work out well. But that's something that I've tried to pass on to my child. And I think a lot of you who know Stan know that he was constantly curious about things, constantly asking questions. And not just asking the question, but hey, let's try it. Let's see what happens. And I know that as he interacted with a lot of you, that, I think a lot of you have that adventurous spirit as well. And so I thank you all for coming here. Thank you. I have the wonderful pleasure of introducing the man that has known Stan the longest here, even longer than my mother has known him, longer than all of the children have been born, and the man who is my godfather. This is Mr. Ken Roberts, who has known my father going way.
Thank you, godson. Yes, my name is Ken Roberts, and I have known Stan for a long time. What I want to talk about today is a little bit about friendship. What is friendship? I think we all know what it is, but it's very hard to define. Henry David Thoreau said, "The best thing I can do for my friend is be his friend." You see the problem. Stan was my oldest friend. It all started 70 years ago this week. when we were first year students at Harvard Business School. And we got assigned to the same section, which meant for the next 9 months, we would have all of our classes and eat most of our meals together, along with the other 95 men in our section. Yes, Linda, men. Harvard Business School in the 1950s was all men, including the faculty. And so, in class, Stan sat in the front row. He was prepared. He had his hand up. No, he actually had his hand up. And he was ready to lead the discussion. I sat in the back row, being afraid that I was going to get called on. Over the period of that first year, the class coalesced into a number of small groups. It was the old guys who'd been in the service or were already or still in the military. Some of them were married. They kind of got together. Then there was the fast guys, the sportsmen, and the last group was us younger guys who were still trying to figure out what it was all about. And Stan and I were in that group, even though Stan had graduated from MIT 2 years prior to that and had been in the Army in the intervening time. And so in that smaller group, we made friends. And Stan and I got together because I think because we appreciated each other's point of view. We had very dissimilar backgrounds, but we liked the way each other thought, and we enjoyed talking about them. And so we became friends, and at the end of the first year, Stan and another MIT graduate in our section, Bob Anslow, invited me to become their roommate for the second year. And thus started a year of hard work, a lot of fun, double dating, triple dating. Bob had a steady girlfriend who was a senior at Radcliffe named Tiki. I found my future wife, Dewey, who was teaching at Buckingham School, teaching first grade. And Stan found Jackie at Wellesley College. Or was it Jackie who found Stan at Wellesley College? I'm not sure. So what could go wrong? Actually, as it turned out, nothing went wrong. Dewey and I got married that summer. Stan and Bob were in the wedding. Bob got married to Tiki later that fall, and Stan and Jackie got married after she graduated from Wellesley. They invited me to come to their wedding, but by that time I was in the Army and we were living in Germany, so I couldn't do it. When I returned to civilian life, I found a job in Waltham. Stan had already received his doctorate in business and was teaching at Harvard. Bob was working at Raytheon. Jackie and Stan bought a small house in Wellesley. Dewey and I bought a small house in Wellesley. Stan and Jackie bought a bigger house in Wellesley. And they spotted a house down the street that they thought, you might like that. And Stan and Jackie and Dewey connived us to look at that house, and we bought it. So we were neighbors again. And this went on for about 60 years of being friends. talking with each other, going to the movies, having dinner, bragging about our grandchildren, bragging about our great-grandchildren. Stan and I talked on the side, and we listened. How's your business going? What are your plans? What are my plans? What are our goals? Just where is the goal line? Relishing in being together. And that's sort of what I wanted to talk about. Does friendship end? I don't think so, Jackie. I think memories live on. So Stan, keep up the good work. My old friend. Thank you.
So next up, we're going to invite Marjorie Silver to come up.
First time I looked out this way, see how many people are here. Can you hear me? I love it that this table is the podium. These are the tables that come out for parties, and you put your drinks on them. It'd be perfect for Stan. I'm really happy to talk about Stan. He was such an interesting man, a multifaceted man, a teacher, a businessman, in the village, a member of the Resident Advisory Committee and the Village Finance Committee. I knew Stan best as a good friend, the leader of Building 85, and as a teacher. About 13 years ago, Stan and Jackie moved into the apartment next door to me in Building 85. I met them soon afterwards, and we became friends. It's another friendship talk. Beginning with memories of our student days. Stan and I both knew the words to "Let Her Sleep Under the Bar," and we both thought the best Chinese restaurant in the whole world was a hole in the wall in Chinatown named Yi Han Gui. Stan was a teacher of 85, Stan was a leader of 85 in two ways. As I said, he served on the Finance Committee and was our representative on the Resident Advisory Committee, informing us of important village issues and presenting our suggestions and so forth to the board. But I knew him best as his role as creator of fun. In a very short time after Stan moved into Building 85, he and Jackie were part of a group that started the weekly cocktail parties in the 85 library. He was the original chairman of the Foundation, an imaginary organization that was financed with Mongolian bitcoins and formed to improve the lives of our residents. Stan was responsible for the creation of many of the foundation projects, such as a fireplace for the 85 library, a dance hall in the rickety building across from Town Hall, and a casino boat on the pond. Well, so as it turns out, the only money the foundation ever collected came to us when the player piano we ordered fell off the delivery truck and we got the insurance money. Stan was also the instigator and the primary planner of parties in '85, where he was the master of the punch bowl and created wonderful alcoholic concoctions. In addition to the usual holiday parties, we celebrated Kentucky Derby Day, and people actually bet and won things. And our famous New Year's party, where Stan stood on a stepladder and dropped a sparkling ball at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock is Brazilian New Year, and because it was at 10 and we couldn't stay awake until 12, we chose it. During our frivolity, Jackie was always there, helping out with party plans and enjoying the fun. Stan and Jackie helped us out in hard times too. They were among the group that during COVID hung little gift bags on our door. And also, they created gatherings during COVID, but the parties were on Zoom. And even recently, a resident who was sick in her apartment found a small flower arrangement from Stan and Jackie outside her door. Stan was also an innovative teacher, and I wanted to talk about that a bit. I experienced this firsthand as a student in Stan's first AI course. Some people were really afraid of this and they thought it was a very bad idea. But some of us were curious about this new controversial innovation, and by the idea of it being taught by an intergenerational team, a 90-year-old and a college student, teaching to people over 80 about artificial intelligence, and with a 100-year-old woman in the class. After the enthusiasm of the first group of students, the class became very popular, and as Linda mentioned, it was filmed, the class was filmed, and it was shown on Channel 10. To me, I was very excited because my research and my clinical work was with older people. I studied 100-year-olds. So I was very excited. It really was a contradiction of the idea that older people couldn't learn. And it kind of shattered that stereotype, which was wonderful. So I would like to read a poem written by AI about Stan. This is I asked for a tribute poem, and I gave them a list of words, and this is what happened. To Stan, a soul both bright and grand, with a multifaceted touch, a guiding hand, a leader who shines with wisdom clear, a beacon of hope to all who draw near, creative in spirit, ever so wise, with a caring heart that lights up the skies. In hospitality's realm, a businessman true, crafting experiences both splendid and new. A teacher at heart, in lessons profound, sharing his knowledge where wisdom is found. Fun-loving always, with laughter and cheer, bringing joy to the moments year after year. Stan, in your presence, the world finds its way. Through kindness and skill, you brighten each day. A tribute to you for the gifts you bestow. In the tapestry of life, you made the threads glow. Thank you very much.
I'd like to invite Bob Reynolds to come up.
Thank you all. It's a real honor to have the opportunity to say a few kind words about Stan. It's not hard, but it's an honor to do so. When we came to the village about 6 years ago, we was chatting with Stan, and we first discovered that we have a common roots of our business relationship, and there are not a whole lot of business people here, so we had common ground on which to stand and that sort of thing. We also determined that we had common heritage in the business world in the fact that we both worked for the General Foods Corporation at about the same time. Stan was well ahead of me and much higher in the organization than I was. I was a 23-year-old green person and an analytical person, and he was higher up in the organization. And he, in fact, we didn't know each other at General Foods, but we did have shared reminiscences of that situation. We knew a lot of the same people, but never encountered each other. So it was really quite a refreshing place to be. And the General Foods Corporation at that point was a large food company and marketing related, and home of famous brands such as Kool-Aid, Bird's Eye, Maxwell House Coffee, and even Gaines dog food at the time. So, General Foods was then a citadel of brand marketing, and Stan was in that part of the business. I was a lowly analyst in another part of the business, but that didn't make a whole lot of difference. We both went on from General Foods to do other things. I went into food retailing, where I spent most of the rest of my life, and Stan has had a checkered career doing lots of different things, which has been captured in the one of the slides here and something you can see out in front, etc. Getting to know Stan after coming here, I quickly learned of his leadership of the Residence Finance Committee. And for any of you who are not familiar with the Finance Committee, our charge is to look after all of the money that you all pay and make sure that it is stewarded well and is all done for good purposes, etc. Stan knew all about the finances. He was certainly predated me with his study of that. I knew but was keenly interested, and one of the dangers is to tell Stan that you're really interested in something, because he will tell you lots about lots of different things. I wanted to know where the bodies were buried, where the secrets were kept, where the leadership was going, and how to think about keeping management aware that the residents were concerned about how our money was being spent. Stan knew all, and it was, as I say, welcome to share. I was the beneficiary of his good work. After a couple of years, Stan retired as the chair of the Finance Committee and asked me to go on and work in his place, and I did, and I was really well indebted to Stan. Stan stayed on the Finance Committee, and so we shared responsibility of making sure that things were well done. As I say, he retired, but he didn't go away. Stan was never afraid to ask the serious or the difficult questions. Some people, just say, okay, management, we trust you. Stan was more management, we trust you, but show us the evidence. And he did an exceptional job of that. To me, Stan was generous, patient, and a determined teacher. He stored knowledge that was very important to me. When I mean he stored it, it was in his head, and he was unafraid to share it, and I was the beneficiary again. On the morning after his passing, I telephoned Stan with some esoteric question about finances, and I don't really remember the exact subject matter, but it was, I didn't often call him in the morning, etc. Something about village finances. The call went to voicemail, and I didn't. Excuse me. Only later in the day did I learn that Stan had passed, and I was shocked. In closing, I was blessed to have known Stan. I will miss him. I already miss him. We will all, miss his leadership, knowledge, and friendship, and his smile, which was kind of permanent in his demeanor, regardless of whether he's calling me a fool or otherwise. He was almost always smiling. And we are all we are all poor for his passing. And I'd still like to get an answer to that question that I called him about.
And Jack, would you like to come up? Jack Hershey.
Wow. I told you there'd be a lot of people here. Oh, wow. This is great. Stan Buchin, ever the academic, publishing solo authored, refereed, peer-reviewed journal articles in his 90s. Stan Buchin, ever the teacher, teaching both at the village and at the university at the same time in his 90s. Stan, I learned the first couple weeks I was here that Stan was in a really hot research group in the early 60s at the Harvard Business School, studying a brand new field, a hot field, called Bayesian statistical theory. Bayesian statistical theory. Bayesian. I looked at the crossword puzzle, and I think, to give you a hint, right? I think number 13 across, 8 letters. I think that might be Bayesian. But you need a capital B, because it's named for Reverend Bayes from I don't know what century. Okay. But there was also a hot group, I think, competing at Stanford. And the third hot group, I don't mean hot, I mean hotbed, okay, so it's clear. The hotbed group was at Rand Corporation in Pasadena, and the three of us, I was at Stanford, the three of us were exchanging notes, and it was so early that no journals could publish in time, and they probably wouldn't want to publish it because they either couldn't understand it or they didn't believe it. You know? So we exchanged mimeographed notes across the country. When we moved, I threw out most of my stuff, most of my academic stuff. It was just too much, or gave it away. But I kept those notes. And last year I showed them to Stan. He said, let me see those notes. And he says, wait a minute. He says, I wrote some of those. And that was Stan. The other thing is I saw him at Margaret's Cafe a few months ago. I said, who's that? And it was one of his former students seeking career advice. So, ever the teacher. On the finance committee, he dug into these reports like nobody else. He bobbled about it. I mean, he really dug into these things. And he was trying to clarify some fine point about allocating fixed costs, or he was looking to see what accounting gimmick they tried to pull on us last, or tried to see what they should have explained better in a footnote, or what cash transfer was nowhere to be found. He was always looking for these cash transfers and why they weren't in a footnote, right? And I mean, we often disagreed, but he was right. He was almost always right. So I learned a lot from Stan, and we all did. You know, there's this expression, you can agree, but you don't have to be disagreeable. You've heard that expression. You should try to agree while being agreeable. Stan went further. He had this way of have this genuine, pleasant smile on his face while he's disagreeing. So we're all going to miss his experience. I'm going to miss his experience, his intellect, his wisdom. But I'm going to miss his friendship and that beautiful smile even more. Thanks.
Jack, I have to say, I had the privilege of meeting some of the people that worked with my dad, and that something's not right. There's a number not right somewhere. He could look at a report that was 60 pages long and suddenly say, page 45, something's not right there. He didn't know what it was. He'd send them back, and sure enough. So that experience of looking at those numbers has always been there. So we'd like to close with my brother Dave coming up next. So thank you.
Hi, everybody. So I had the task of pulling together Stan's obituary. Apparently it's traditional to have the middle child do it. That's, no? Well, anyways, it turned out to be much more of a pleasant experience than I anticipated. I really enjoyed reliving parts of our shared life together, as well as being reminded of events that took place before my time. As I was collecting the needed facts and figures of his life, I was also hearing from those that knew Stan and had heard of his passing. While I was not surprised to hear words like smart, funny, kind, and looks great in tweed, the word that popped up the most often was family. So after a while, I started to realize that this was Stan's true superpower. He treated the people closest to him like family, whether they were students, coworkers, friends, or actual relatives. He had the ability to make them all feel like they were part of his family. And for those that knew Stan, which includes everybody here today, you know that there were very few things that he wouldn't do for family. For family, he was generous with his time, his quick wit, his attentive ear, and for the lucky few, his scotch. So please, I know we don't have too many glasses, but raise your hand in a toast to the wonderful giving life of my dad, Stan the Man Buchin. And to all of you, I say, welcome to the family.
So we appreciate you all coming. Again, if you didn't get a chance to get the crossword puzzle or the answers, you can look on the sheet around the corner. We have some punch and cookies, and if you haven't had a chance to sign the book, we would appreciate it if you would. And I don't know how many of you realize, but my mom is actually here. She made it down from the 3rd floor, so you can stop and visit her before she goes back up. So thank you.